So dudes, it's Tuhu. So the Star Rail 1.6 preview stream was earlier today, and for those of you who play, or at least follow, Star Rail news, you've probably heard by now about the contents of that stream. The biggest of which is the free copy of Dr. Ratio that miHoYo is going to give to all Star Rail players, thanks to the awards the game got from things like TGA, Google Play Awards, and the iOS Awards, or whatever that's called. In other words, miHoYo is giving Star Rail players a free copy of a 5-star character. Not a permanent character, a limited character. Or maybe he will be permanent later, I don't know. But either way, that's a free 5-star character for all Star Rail players. So chances are, if you're a Star Rail player, or you at least know about Star Rail, you'll also know about miHoYo's other really popular game called Genshin Impact. So naturally, as soon as we got the Dr. Ratio news from earlier today, people started comparing these two games again, this time about how, Star Rail is about to get a free 5-star character way before Genshin will, and how this will possibly set up Star Rail's first anniversary, which is about 4 months out from now, to be better than anything Genshin ever got. So I suspect you'll be seeing a lot of back and forths between Genshin and Star Rail players, with Star Rail players telling the Genshin players, things like L+ ratio, because of course why wouldn't they, and Genshin players getting pissed that miHoYo is treating Star Rail better than they ever did Genshin, with this free 5-star character thing just being a slap in the face to them at this point. So for those of you who are wondering why this is the case, why it's always felt like miHoYo gives Star Rail better content updates than they do for Genshin, I'm here to explain to you exactly that, so buckle up. Other than the fact that Star Rail is, more or less a spin-off of Honkai Impact, which is, as we all know, miHoYo's true poster child, we have to take a look at both Genshin and Star Rail and the circumstances surrounding both of them. Let's start with Genshin. It's not controversial to say, I don't think, that Genshin Impact is the biggest and most successful gacha game in the world, and has been for the last 3 years ever since it first came out. And because of its huge popularity, the most defining characteristic of the Genshin community is the sheer prevalence of casuals, or dare I even say, normies who play the game. In other words, the vast majority of Genshin players are casual. It's something that a lot of hardcore Genshin players, or the ones who think they're hardcore anyway, tend to forget or simply not know. This is why miHoYo has always emphasized casual gameplay in Genshin. The exploration, the random-ass events that feature anything from like tower defense minigames to wind trace and arcade-style break the targets or whatever that's called. These events, even the ones that are more combat-focused, are designed so that all players, including casuals, are able to obtain all the rewards and aren't forced to grind the game like us hardcore players do for the perfect gear for our characters. And of course, that's how we got this gem from last year from miHoYo, saying that they didn't want to make more endgame content because they were afraid of creating excessive anxiety for its players. They obviously aren't referring to us hardcore players, they're talking about everyone else. And that's where most of miHoYo's bandwidth is for Genshin, and why content updates that are catered more for hardcore players are so few and far between. They designed the game to be casual friendly, and are working on updates that are mainly catered to casual players, simply because most of the player base is casual, and they're the ones who pay miHoYo's quotas. Now, miHoYo does put out 1 or 2 content updates a year that hardcore players can appreciate. These usually entail things like strongbox updates, artifact inventory expansions, and most recently, artifact filtering that they took straight from Star Rail. By the way, Star Rail had this feature since day one. miHoYo just took the idea and put it into Genshin 2 because why not? But there are still plenty of things that we would like to have added to the game, assuming they ever will be, such as gear loadouts, constellation toggles, and artifact farming updates. So if you like to be pessimistic like me, it's pretty clear that to miHoYo, hardcore players are basically an afterthought. The most egregious consequence of Genshin being the most popular gacha game is that miHoYo knows that they don't need to go out of their way to work on things that they're not already focusing on. And the most obvious example of this is what they do, or more accurately, what they don't do for Genshin's anniversary. I play 10 gacha games. Yes, I'm serious. And besides the ones that haven't been out for a full year yet, every other gacha that I do play makes a very big deal out of their anniversary events. Genshin is the only gacha that I play that does not do this. Like, I know they run promotions and ads outside the game to get people to come play, but nothing really happens in-game. Like, I think this year you could buy some Genesis Crystal Pack, because of the concerts they were having at the time, that gave you an exclusive wing glider and some other goodies. But hell, even that wasn't, like, explicitly tied to Anniversary stuff in the first place. And other than that, what else did we have? What else do we have? And the reason why MiHoYo can get away with this is, frankly, they ain't gotta do shit. Like, they know they're in charge of the biggest gacha ever. They know that as long as they nail their new character designs, people will always come back to spend literal millions on their banners. Because remember, their moneymakers are the casuals and normies who care more about what hot new waifu or husbando they can roll for. So from MiHoYo's perspective, there's simply no reason for them to do things like in-game anniversary celebrations or actual gameplay updates because they aren't worth their damn time. Simply put, Genshin is the biggest and most successful gacha game in the world, and no one else even comes close. And when you operate the biggest and most successful gacha game in the world, you get to run it however you damn want, because you'll still be making bank from all the casuals who play your game. And if anybody's got a problem with that, they can go fuck themselves. Now let's take a look at Star Rail. As big as Star Rail is, and how successful it has been since launch, it's still nowhere near as big as Genshin in terms of sheer player base. When Genshin first came out back in 2020, it had the perfect storm of circumstances that firmly cemented it as the most popular gacha game in the world, the biggest of which was ultimately being able to capture a mainstream market, which is why Genshin has so many casual players. But Genshin's sheer popularity is a double-edged sword, because with how hard it popped off, that means that any game that MiHoYo follows it up with will almost never be able to match the same level of success that Genshin did. I mean, realistically, no MiHoYo game will ever be as successful as Genshin unless we bring back the pandemic and force everyone to quarantine back in their homes again. And even if we do get another pandemic, ain't nobody gonna quarantine anyway, because most people are just sick and tired of that shit. So MiHoYo knew going into Star Rail's release earlier this year that the chances of Star Rail doing as well as Genshin overall were slim to none. That's not to say that Star Rail hasn't been successful, obviously, far from it, but getting the mainstream market again to come play Star Rail when they're probably already playing Genshin just wasn't gonna happen. So in order to make Star Rail as successful as possible, MiHoYo has gone to great lengths to make sure that it's a much more well-rounded game. It's got a lot of the same casual-friendly features that Genshin has, like map exploration, though it's not truly open world, but even still, storytelling with 3D models with the occasional animated cutscene, events with casual-friendly gameplay, and fantastic and highly appealing character designs that can easily bait people, myself included, into rolling for them in gacha. But it also has a lot more hardcore or endgame content on top of the casual stuff. Simulated Universe, Forgotten Hall, MOC, even the event gameplay favors players who play the game regularly and have geared characters. And let's not forget about things like, the Relic Synthesizer, which is basically an upgraded version of Genshin's Strongbox, and the self-modeling resins that Genshin straight up doesn't have. Star Rail's also got its Light Cone banner, that's an improved version of Genshin's weapon banner, and faster reruns for previous limited 5-star characters. And of course, every new patch cycle, Star Rail does a free multi-login giveaway, something that Genshin only does like once or twice a year. I'm sure there's still a few things that I forgot to mention that Star Rail has that Genshin doesn't, but the point is this: MiHoYo has worked a lot harder on making Star Rail as appealing of a gacha game as possible, because they knew it's never gonna quite match the level of popularity that Genshin has, but they still wanted it to do as well as it could anyway. So instead of just focusing on casual content, they've expanded to make content for both casual and hardcore players, appealing to both of them alike. This is ultimately why playing Star Rail may feel more satisfying, especially for more dedicated players, because MiHoYo has consistently put out bangers of updates ever since the game first launched, and every single update has given everyone something to be excited about, be it new characters or more gameplay updates, culminating in the free copy of Dr. Ratio we're gonna get. And simply put, this is because MiHoYo can afford to rest on their laurels with a game like Genshin and just let, the casuals and normies pay for all their content updates with all the C6 Farinas and Navias they're gonna roll for, while with Star Rail, they don't have that same luxury, or at least not to the same extent, and they actually have to put out updates that will appeal to both casual and hardcore players alike to both bring in new players and keep the veterans playing. And for the record, in case you couldn't tell just from watching the videos so far, I play both Genshin and Star Rail and consider myself a hardcore player in both. I love both games and thoroughly enjoy playing them both. But I have to say, if you play Genshin and you've heard about this free Doctor Ratio for Star Rail players, yeah, get fucked. If you like what you've seen here, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more. I also dual stream to both my YouTube and Twitch, twitch.tv/ToeSniper98, if you want to see what it's like to play 10 gacha games at once. Thanks for watching.